Hey, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning in to History with Chemistry. If you're new here, I do Black History. This is going to be part 2 to the literal purge that took place during Hurricane Katrina. I left off on the last part basically explaining that the Superdome, the place that housed 150 people, was now a sewer. There was no running water, no plumbing system, no electricity, no food, no medical help. This was literally just a dome to die in at this point. Now, I want to go into what the dome did to people that died. Now, if you died in the Superdome during the flooding, they piled you up outside so that the sun could bake you and you would decompose faster. And I'm not saying this to make it seem bad or make it seem worse than it is. I need y'all to go watch When the Levees Broke. It's a documentary about 2.5 hours from literal victims of Hurricane Katrina with their accounts of what they experienced. So yeah, back to it. They piled these bodies up outside so that the crows could eat at them, so that the sun could decompose them. The smell of the Superdome, like I said, was a sewer, and it was dead bodies, and it was shit and piss and everything you could fucking think of in this Superdome with these hundreds of thousands of people, to the point where people were really literally they were choosing to go outside in floodwaters than to be in there. Can you imagine that? And then the Superdome sat on a hill. So yeah, it sat on a hill, but now you got it was just, I'm sorry, it gets me emotional. But okay, yeah, the rescue teams. So I told y'all that the rescue teams put people on bridges, right? Some of those people decided to go to the other bridge. There was another bridge. So they walked to the other bridge. And when they got to that bridge, they were met with a line of police officers with guns ready to shoot them, because the governor of that city or that parish over there on the other side of that bridge said that they were not allowed. Imagine you're trying to just escape a natural fucking disaster. You found a bridge to another parish that wasn't negatively affected by the hurricane, and you think you found your savior, this is it, and then you get on that bridge and it's fucking police officers with machine guns ready to kill you to avoid you from going to safety, because white people live here and black people are not allowed. It's to the point where the president of that parish, because they have presidents over there in New Orleans, like presidents of different parishes, and also instead of like cities and counties, they have parishes. That's what I mean whenever I say parish. The parish president of, I think it was Jefferson Parish, he went on the radio and said, we don't want no refugees here. You will not get help here. Our hospitals are not open to you. This is a neighboring parish. Imagine that. All while the government ain't doing shit. Imagine you're doing this, you're doing all this to protect yourself because you know the government ain't doing shit. And then the sad part is they didn't even know the government wasn't doing shit. There was no electricity. There was no way to radio out, to get radio. Also, there was a lot of different radio stations that was denying people from reaching out via radio. Like, it was to the point where it was all almost fabricated and calculated. Like they didn't want it to get out what was happening in New Orleans. It was almost like it was an attempted massacre of predominantly black people, because the lack of support that they got from the government, the lack of aid that they got from the government, the fact that the government turned down aid from other countries just to give us nothing, to give black people nothing. Like, just think about that. It felt so fabricated and calculated, and you can't help but to think about that, and to think about the amount of people that said that they heard a bomb go off at that levee. But enough of what I think. Back to the facts. Now, I did do some research and some accounts of the white people that took arms during this time, and what I did find are a lot of newspaper articles and a lot of, like, similar to podcast confessions, I would call, of their crimes. And a lot of them said that they were told that the black people that were looting and looking in buildings, on top of buildings, were criminals. There was a large influx of criminals, and they were taking advantage of this time, and they were killing people and raping white women. That was another thing. A lot of white women were getting raped, with air quotes. So this is why white people took up arms during a fucking hurricane, and then took up arms and went to another fucking parish. You was good where you was at. You just never mind. Anyway. So, about 6 days after the hurricane was over, they were still flooded, George Bush decides to take a visit to New Orleans, but he never touched ground. He never touched ground. You know what he did? He flew over in his private jet and took a photo, had a photo op a photography team, as he looked out the picture. I'm gonna put a picture up here. He looked out the window and he looked so sad, just looking at the little homeless black people, the little sad black people. That's what the fuck the president did. And after that video aired is when Kanye West said the famous quote, George Bush don't like black people. And it was fucking true. Alright, so after, you know, the dust settled a little bit, the mayor or governor was a black man. He made it his business. Now, I can say he should have done more about preparing, but after it happened, I give him his props because he made sure that everybody in the world knew. They gave him some airtime on the radio. He made sure everybody in the world knew the government does not care about us. They're lying to y'all saying that they're sending all these millions of dollars worth of aid. We have not received nothing. And once he went on air and said that, that's when the president wanted to fucking invite him out and negotiate terms. Ain't no negotiation. And he went out there with that. We're not negotiating none. We're taking everything that you're offering. And then we still need more. The fuck? Meanwhile, FEMA was on the ground the whole time. FEMA, if y'all don't know what FEMA is, if there's ever a natural disaster in your city or your town, your state, FEMA is the one that's supposed to come and help you. They help you out the floodwaters. They help you out after the tornado comes. They're like supposed to be the saviors in that situation, and they did nothing. In fact, 80% of FEMA's aid went to the white parishes that were barely even affected. Crazy work. Diabolical. So, after this happened, the government decided to do something. After the governor / mayor or whomever, I forgot which one he was. It was a black man. After he made it known and he talked to the president, they came back, and that's when the government decided to send some help. They sent major buses of people to different airports, and the people that were on these buses, mind you, this is in that documentary when the levees broke. The people that were on these buses said they didn't know where they were going. When they asked the driver of the bus, where are we going, the driver would respond and say they never told us where we were going. When they went to the airport and got on that plane, they didn't know where they were going until they landed and saw that they were in Houston, until they landed and they saw they were in New York. Or they landed and they saw they were in fucking St. Louis or somewhere in Arkansas or Utah. They didn't even know. The government literally got these people in mass and just sent them off anywhere. It was in the levees broke. They said it felt like the transatlantic slave trade, because that's exactly what happened. You take these families, these groups of people, and you just send them off wherever with no help, no nothing. You just send them off in different parts of the world, and that's it. It's not your problem anymore. I meant to say it's so fucking sad. Now, once these people made it to their destinational cities, like Houston, for instance, if you ever lived in Houston or you've ever been, you'll notice there's a lot of New Orleans natives that live there, and that is why they're there. Is because they were just sent there, or they drove there. Like if they were fortunate enough to evacuate beforehand, they drove to Houston because it was the next major city. But there was a lot of racial and social tensions between the local Houstonians and the New Orleans natives, because you're basically, there wasn't nearly enough housing and there wasn't nearly enough resources for the influx of people from New Orleans. So they had to find ways to fend for themselves. There was a large homeless population. The Houstonians did not like that, so they became very violent toward them. And the New Orleans people were already shooken up, so that it was kind of like a bowl ready to be stirred, and it's stirred the fuck up. All right. So at the end of all this, over 1 million people were displaced. After all of this, once they shipped people out to fucking bumfuck, 1 million people were displaced. To this day, there's people in America that do not know where their family members are because they were put on a different plane to somewhere else. To this day. And that's sad as fuck. I hope technology, as it advances, if it unites a lot of family, or has the ways to unite a lot of families. But for now, that is the end of this series of the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Again, I have an Instagram and a TikTok that you should follow. I do Black History. Thank you for watching.